Mr. Finch, our new CTO, scrawled furiously across the gleaming glass board on the executive floor of Apex Financial Systems. His expensive marker squeaked with an almost violent enthusiasm. Velocity over fortification, he declared, stepping back to admire his handiwork. The slogan, rendered in an aggressive writ, seemed to vibrate under the recessed lighting. My team members and I, summoned for this impromptu announcement, stood by uncomfortably. His words, directed at us but clearly intended for a wider audience, cut through the otherwise hushed atmosphere of the open plan office. "That, gentlemen and ladies," he added with a cursory nod to Lena Petrova from product management, who had also been roped in, "is our new mantra." He turned, his eyes, like a shark's, finding me and the small group. "More agility, Rossi, not more of your fortresses. My name is Victor Rossi. I am 42 years old. Until recently, I was the lead security architect at Apex Financial Systems, right here in the heart of San Francisco, California. For 9 long years, I had poured my life into building and meticulously maintaining the security infrastructure. This very system safeguarded the sensitive financial data of over 300 clients, a responsibility I never took lightly. I had seen 4 chief technology officers pass through these polished halls before. Each had their quirks, their visions. Alistair Finch was the 5th, and after a mere 2 weeks, barely enough time to learn where the good coffee was, he had already decided I, Victor Rossi, was the primary impediment to his glorious revolution. He seemed to view my experience not as an asset, but as a stubborn relic of a bygone era. Mr. Finch gestured dismissively at the detailed security roadmap I had presented to him just days earlier, a document born from weeks of analysis. "These protocols, Rossi, are quaint," he sneered, without even a pretense of flipping through its pages. He tapped a manicured finger on the cover of my comprehensive quarterly security assessment, which lay on the edge of a nearby minimalist credenza. "Frankly, it reads more like a cautious novel than an actionable plan." A faint smirk played on his lips. "We're losing deployment velocity because we're too busy building impenetrable, unscalable castles in the sky." He paced before us, his expensive Italian loafers silent on the plush carpet. "Our competitors, the ones actually innovating, are moving twice, no, 3 times as fast. They embrace calculated risks. We, it seems, are terrified of our own shadows." I took a slow breath, forcing the tension from my shoulders, keeping my voice level, professional. It was a skill honed over many such challenging encounters, though none quite this overtly contemptuous. "Mr. Finch, with all due respect, those same agile competitors have also experienced significant, very public data breaches. Some more than once." He waved his hand, a gesture of supreme dismissal, as if swatting an annoying fly. "Breaches are inevitable, Rossi. A cost of doing business in the modern age." His gaze swept over the other team leads, who, I noted with a familiar pang of disappointment, were nodding like marionettes. No one wanted to be the first to contradict the new emperor. No one, it seemed, except the man whose entire career was built on preventing those inevitable breaches. "Our clients, Mr. Finch, trust Apex Financial Systems specifically because we haven't had a major breach under my watch for 9 years, I stated, my tone firm, but respectful. "The financial sector, as you know, operates under a different set of expectations, far more stringent requirements well, than many other industries." I thought of my father, a retired engineer, who always stressed the importance of robust design over flashy shortcuts. Mr. Finch's smile was a thin, humorless line. It never came close to reaching his cold, calculating eyes. "BlackRock, Citigroup, J.P. Morgan," he recited, as if ticking off a list he'd memorized from a business magazine. "I am intimately familiar with the security requirements of the financial world, Rossi. Perhaps more familiar than you think, coming from my background in strategic re-engineering at several prominent firms." He made it sound like he personally architected their security, rather than just advised on cost-cutting. What Mr. Finch, in his infinite strategic wisdom, failed to grasp was that our security system, my system, christened Aegis, in my private notes, was anything but standard. It was a complex, bespoke ecosystem of defenses I had meticulously crafted over years. This was a direct result of the board consistently refusing to invest in prohibitively expensive enterprise-grade solutions. Aegis comprised proprietary firewall rule sets, constantly evolving custom intrusion detection system patterns, and a finely tuned, homegrown access control system that was both powerful and granular. Every component was documented, of course. But the documentation, I had to admit, was often more of a high-level overview than a deep-dive manual. The board, in their relentless push for efficiency, had never approved my repeated requests for dedicated time and resources for proper, in-depth knowledge transfer or comprehensive documentation. Sir, if I could just walk you through why these particular layers of Aegis are critical for our specific threat model, I began, hoping to appeal to some sliver of reason. We don't have time for a deep dive into ancient history today, Rossi. Mr. Finch cut me off, his tone sharp. He snapped his sleek, ludicrously thin laptop shut with a decisive click. The sound echoed the closing of a door. A mind. Everyone, and I mean everyone, is stretched to the absolute limit, getting the new client portal ready for its accelerated launch. Let's table this security discussion indefinitely, shall we? His smile was back, that predatory glint in his eyes. Focus on velocity, people. Velocity. After the meeting, if one could call that condescending monologue such, Lena Petrova from product development caught up with me in the hallway. Her expression, a mixture of sympathy and concern. The scent of her usual high-end coffee preceded her. "Victor, are you okay?" she asked, her voice low. That was incredibly rough. I managed a tight, unconvincing smile. "I'm fine, Lena." The blatant lie. I felt anything but fine. A cold knot of anger and frustration was tightening in my gut. My vintage Omega semester, a gift from my father, felt unusually heavy on my wrist. "Alistair is just Alistair," she said with a sigh, shaking her head. "He's like a bull in a china shop, trying to make his mark, establish dominance from day one. Maybe give him a little time to settle in, to understand how things actually work around here." Her optimism, though well-intentioned, felt painfully naive in the face of what I had just witnessed. But her hopeful words evaporated just 3 days later. I discovered, quite by accident, that my administrative access to the custom threat intelligence feed I had personally designed and integrated into Aegis had been silently revoked. This feed was crucial for proactive threat hunting. When I queried the IT help desk, the response was a bland, pre-scripted email. This change is part of a new policy directive from the CTO's office aimed at standardizing monitoring tools, it read. Standardizing. I soon learned that all specialized security logs, including Aegis's detailed telemetry, were being forcibly consolidated into the general IT monitoring system. This was a system I had repeatedly flagged in official reports as woefully inadequate for any kind of detailed forensic analysis or sophisticated threat detection. It was like replacing a surgeon's scalpel with a butter knife. That night, a gnawing unease settled deep within me. I meticulously backed up all my personal documentation, the Aegis system architecture blueprints, my detailed process notes, innovative methods developed over years, and critical incident response protocols I had authored. This wasn't company data. It was the essence of my intellectual property, the very DNA of the systems I had bled for. I encrypted the archive and transferred it to my secure NAS at home. A premonition, cold and clear, told me I might need it, and sooner than I dared to think. The very next morning, my custom monitoring AI, which I'd nicknamed Cerberus AI, sent a discreet, encrypted alert directly to my personal email address. It flagged 3 highly unusual, sophisticated reconnaissance probes originating from a cluster of overseas IP addresses known for state-sponsored activity. These weren't brute force attempts. They were subtle, probing for specific, non-obvious vulnerabilities. The new standardized IT monitoring system, of course, showed nothing. Its dashboard remained a serene, oblivious green. No one else seemed to notice the wolves circling at the digital gates. My journey to Apex Financial Systems had begun years ago after a 5-year stint with a major government defense contractor. Back then, Apex was just a scrappy startup, buzzing with the energy of ambitious founders who possessed far more vision than actual funding. I was employee number 26, a fact that sometimes felt like a lifetime ago. Now, we had swelled to over 300 people, spread across 2 gleaming office buildings in the financial district of San Francisco. I remembered my father, a pragmatic man and a former technician himself, expressing his skepticism when I announced I was leaving a stable, well-paying, government-adjacent job for an unknown startup, especially in that volatile economic climate. "Are you sure about this, son?" he had asked, his brow furrowed with concern. These startup dreams can evaporate like morning mist. But I had believed, truly believed, in what we were striving to build. A bastion of security-first financial data management, long before fintech became the ubiquitous buzzword it is today. I had willingly taken a significant pay cut to join that dream. My compensation was heavily weighted towards equity, shares that would only hold substantial value if we, as a collective, succeeded against formidable odds. And for a long time, we did. We thrived. For years, I poured everything I had into the company, routinely working 80-hour weeks, sometimes more, architecting and refining Aegis while other team leads constantly battled for slivers of the budget and precious headcount. I learned to make do with less, to innovate out of necessity, developing ingenious custom solutions when the off-the-shelf enterprise products were far beyond our financial reach. The compromise, however, was always the same, a silent bargain struck with the relentless pace of growth. I would build it myself, robust and effective. But there was never, ever enough time or resources allocated to properly document every intricate detail or to comprehensively train others on its complex inner workings. A part of me, the part that craved order and thoroughness, always chafed at this, but the demands were relentless. That's a significant bottleneck, Victor. Our previous CTO, the brilliant Dr. Evelyn Hayes, had warned me on more than one occasion. Her insightful gaze serious. She was a woman I deeply respected, a true leader with a formidable intellect, holding a PhD from MIT. A single point of failure, if you will. "What happens, heaven forbid, if you get hit by a bus?" she had asked, only half joking. I had usually deflected with a wry smile. "Then whoever replaces me had better be exceptionally good at deciphering my code comments and design notes, Dr. Hayes." She understood, perhaps better than anyone else in leadership, the staggering amount of technical debt we were accumulating beneath the surface of our rapid expansion. But Evelyn, bless her, consistently shielded me and my team from the board's incessant, often short-sighted pressure for ever faster release cycles and a constant deluge of new, often insecure features. We had developed a rhythm, a productive synergy. I would identify emerging threats and potential vulnerabilities within our systems. She, with her keen business acumen, would translate those technical risks into tangible business impacts, articulating them in a language the board could understand, or at least pretend to. Together, we would navigate the treacherous waters and find compromises that, while not always ideal, managed to keep our security posture remarkably strong, a silent guardian against the digital storm. Her departure for a prestigious professorship at Stanford, combined with an advisory role at a promising tech startup, had been a significant blow. Then, Apex Financial Systems was acquired by Quantum Leap Capital, or QLC, a massive, faceless investment firm known for its aggressive restructuring tactics. The reassuring presence of Dr. Hayes was swiftly replaced by Alistair Finch. His mandate, delivered with slick confidence during his introductory all-hands meeting, a spectacle of buzzwords and corporate jargon, was brutally clear. accelerate growth, streamline operations, unlock trapped value, he had proclaimed, his voice booming with artificial enthusiasm. It was at that very all-hands meeting that Mr. Finch first publicly took aim at my work. He projected a slide with the security department's budget, a minuscule sliver compared to marketing and innovation labs. And then we have systems like Aegis, he said, the name dripping with poorly concealed disdain, as if he had found something unsavory on the sole of his shoe. A testament to, shall we say, thoroughness. A few sycophants in the front rows chuckled nervously. But in an era of agile development and cloud-native solutions, it represents over-engineering, a relic. My blood ran cold. My 9 years of dedication reduced to a punchline. This is a cost center we can optimize, he continued, a significant expenditure of resources on what I can only term as excessive fortification. He announced, to my utter shock, and without any prior consultation, that the maintenance budget for Aegis was being slashed by 70%. The funds, he declared, would be reallocated to a flashy new AI-powered next-generation security monitoring platform he had apparently championed at a previous company. I knew the platform. It was a triumph of marketing over substance, a notorious resource hog with a poor detection rate for sophisticated attacks. When I later attempted to privately voice my grave concerns about the vulnerabilities this new platform couldn't possibly cover, and the risks of gutting Aegis, Mr. Finch had simply smirked. "You're just resistant to change, Rossi," he had said, patting my shoulder condescendingly. "Embrace the new paradigm." Within a month of his arrival, the insidious changes began to ripple through the organization, just as I had feared. Security review meetings were abruptly shortened, often to mere 15-minute formalities, to accommodate dangerously aggressive new release cycles. Crucial penetration tests, meticulously planned for months, were first rescheduled due to urgent business priorities, then quietly scaled back to superficial scans. My teams carefully prepared authorization requests for essential security upgrades, and vital patches for Aegis were consistently deprioritized, lost in a bureaucratic shuffle orchestrated by Finch's new lieutenants. The message was clear: security was now an afterthought, a checkbox to be ticked with minimal effort. Lena, ever observant, saw the ominous writing on the wall too. We were having a quick lunch in the small, sun-dappled courtyard, a rare moment of respite. She picked at her salad, her usual vibrant energy subdued. "They're pushing our sprint capacity to the absolute breaking point, Victor," she confided, her voice barely above a whisper. "QA is getting completely squeezed, forced to sign off on half-baked releases just to meet these insane, arbitrary deadlines Mr. Finch keeps pulling out of thin air." I felt a familiar knot tighten in my stomach. "What about the compliance requirements, Lena?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "The PCI DSS audits, the SOX controls. We can't just cut corners there. Our entire business model depends on that trust." She shrugged, a gesture of weary resignation that spoke volumes. "Alistair says we're creatively reinterpreting the requirements for a more agile operational model," she quoted, her tone laced with a sarcasm I rarely heard from her. His exact words, not mine. It sounds impressive until you realize it means we're sailing straight into a storm with no lifeboats. That same evening, Noah Miller, one of my brightest junior security analysts and a young man I had personally mentored, stopped by my desk, his brow furrowed with a mixture of confusion and anxiety. He clutched a worn copy of a cybersecurity textbook I had given him when he first joined the team. "Something really weird happened today, Mr. Rossi," he began, his voice hesitant. "I got pulled into a meeting with Mr. Finch's new efficiency consultant. He questioned me for nearly an hour about our firewall rule update process for Aegis. Mr. Finch apparently wants to know why changes take, in his words, an eternity to implement." My jaw tightened. I knew our process was thorough, involving multiple layers of testing and verification to prevent accidental outages or security holes, a process Dr. Hayes had fully endorsed. Did you explain the rigorous testing protocols, Noah? I asked, keeping my voice calm despite the rising irritation. The sandbox environments? The staged rollouts? The rollback procedures? Yeah, I did, Mr. Rossi, Noah confirmed, nodding earnestly. I walked him through every step, just like you taught me. But he just kept pushing, asking if there were undocumented workarounds or expedited emergency overrides we could use for time-sensitive situations. He made it sound like our diligence was a problem. After Noah, looking thoroughly dejected, had left for the day, I sat alone in the dimming office, staring blankly at my monitor. The glow of the screen reflected in my vintage watch. 9 years of meticulous, painstaking work. 9 years of building trust, layer by layer, protocol by protocol. And now, this new regime, driven by ignorance and arrogance, wanted dangerous shortcuts, demanding backdoors into the very fortress I had built to protect us. I could feel it, a chilling certainty deep in my bones. Everything I had dedicated my professional life to was beginning to unravel, thread by fragile thread. The unraveling was accelerating. The official-looking calendar invitation appeared in my Outlook inbox on a gray Thursday morning. It was from Mr. Finch's executive assistant. The subject line read, Urgent Management Meeting, Security Department Strategic Realign. The time, 2 p.m. sharp. The location, a seldom-used executive conference room on the top floor, a room usually reserved for board meetings or visiting VIPs. My name was listed as a required attendee alongside Mr. Finch and someone I didn't recognize, Mr. Alistair Kincaid, Strategic Restructuring Consultant. The title alone sent a shiver down my spine. I spent that morning meticulously checking my Aegis security dashboards one last time, a grim ritual. Everything, against all odds and the recent budget cuts, was still running as designed, a silent testament to its robust architecture. My custom Cerberus AI alert system was diligently monitoring for any unusual access patterns, its algorithms vigilant. The critical segmentation I had engineered between client data repositories, the very backbone of our data protection strategy, remained intact and impervious. All automated backup verification tests glowed a reassuring green. Aegis was holding the line. For now. At 2 p.m. precisely, I walked into the oppressive silence of conference room Omega. The air was thick with an unspoken tension. Mr. Finch was already seated at the polished mahogany table, looking infuriatingly calm. Beside him sat the aforementioned Mr. Kincaid, a man whose expensive, razor-sharp suit and predatory smile practically screamed, corporate executioner. He was the kind of consultant companies brought in when they wanted to do something unpleasant, but didn't want their own executives. Fingerprints on the axe. A lone, ominous-looking leather folio lay closed before him. Ah, Rossi, punctual as ever, Mr. Finch said, his tone a parody of professional courtesy. Do have a seat. His eyes, however, were devoid of any warmth, as empty and cold as the view of the San Francisco fog rolling in over the distant Golden Gate Bridge from the panoramic window. I sat, my back straight, my expression carefully neutral. This was not a discussion. It was a sentencing. I'll get straight to the point, as we all have. Pressing matters, Mr. Finch began, a slight, almost imperceptible tremor of something, satisfaction, in his voice. Apex Financial Systems is undergoing a significant restructuring of its security operation model. He paused for dramatic effect, glancing at Mr. Kincaid, who offered a curt, approving nod. We are transitioning to a more agile, distributed, and cloud-native approach. I said nothing. The presence of the strategic restructuring consultant and that closed folio told me everything I needed to know. This was a meticulously orchestrated charade. Consequently, Mr. Finch continued, his gaze unwavering. Your current position as centralized lead security architect is being eliminated. Effective immediately. We are embedding security functions directly within each product development team fostering a culture of security ownership at the grassroots level. A noble sentiment, I thought Riley, if it weren't so utterly impractical without a guiding architectural vision and centralized expertise. And who, may I ask, will maintain the core security infrastructure? I inquired, my voice even, betraying none of the cold fury coiling within me. The intricate systems that underpin everything? We are migrating aggressively to cutting-edge, cloud-native tools, Rossi. Mr. Finch explained with an air of profound wisdom, as if revealing a divine truth. These will be managed primarily by third-party vendors, specialists in their respective domains. He smiled faintly. This approach is far more scalable, more cost-effective, and, crucially, less dependent on, shall we say, tribal knowledge. Tribal knowledge. There it was again. 9 years of my life, 9 years of sleepless nights, of battling bureaucracy, of innovating under pressure to build custom, highly effective solutions to protect hundreds of millions of dollars in client assets, all dismissed with a contemptuous wave of his hand as mere tribal knowledge, an organizational anti-pattern to be eradicated. Mr. Kincaid, the silent executioner, finally spoke, his voice as smooth and chilling as polished steel. He slid the leather folio across the vast expanse of the mahogany table towards me. This document, Mr. Rossi, outlines the terms of your separation package, he stated, his eyes unblinking. It includes 2 months' salary, continuation of health benefits as per Cobra, and, as a gesture of goodwill from Quantum Leap Capital, the accelerated vesting of your remaining equity options from the acquisition. I opened the folder slowly, my gaze scanning the neatly typed numbers. It was, I had to admit, a fair package. Even generous, by industry standards. This decision, this entire charade, had clearly been orchestrated and approved at a level far above Alistair Finch. He was merely the smug, willing messenger, relishing his role. We will, of course, require your company access cards, laptop, and all security credentials before you vacate the premises today, Mr. Finch added, his tone brisk, businesslike. Noah Miller from your former team will be tasked with handling any residual knowledge transfer over the next 2 weeks. You won't need to come into the office, naturally, but we do expect you to be available by phone should any urgent queries arise. A bitter laugh almost escaped me. Noah, a good kid, bright and dedicated, but he was still learning. Mr. Finch, Noah Miller is a talented junior analyst, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. But he doesn't know the entire Aegis system. No one in this company does. Except me. Alistair Finch's expression hardened, a flicker of annoyance crossing his otherwise composed features. Everything of importance is documented, Rossi, he asserted, his voice taking on a sharper edge. We've had our people review your wikis, your code repositories, your design documents. It's all there. Documented, yes, in the limited fashion they had allowed. But understanding that documentation, truly comprehending the intricate interplay of its myriad components, the unwritten assumptions, the historical context of its evolution, that required a depth of knowledge I had never been given the proper resources or time to formally impart. The board, under pressure from investors like QLC, had repeatedly, systematically denied my detailed proposals for a comprehensive knowledge transfer project, proposals that included dedicated training mentorship, and the creation of truly exhaustive documentation. Move faster, Rossi, we'll clean it up later, had been the relentless, echoing refrain for years. Later, it seemed, had finally arrived, but not in the way they had envisioned. I understand, I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. I closed the expensive leather folio with a soft thud. Reaching into my jacket, I pulled out my company-issued laptop. I didn't bother with a notepad. I had prepared for this. I inserted a small, encrypted USB stick into the port. With a few keystrokes, I copied a file containing all my domain admin passwords, VPN access codes, security console credentials, master keys for the monitoring systems, and the critical decryption keys for Aegis's core modules. 9 years of safeguarding this company's most precious data distilled into a single, heavily encrypted digital file. I ejected the USB drive and placed it carefully on the polished table in front of Mr. Finch. "Here is your tribal knowledge, Mr. Finch," I said, a hint of the ice in my veins creeping into my tone. "I trust your people are competent enough to decrypt it, and I sincerely hope, for the sake of Apex's clients, that you make excellent use of it." He merely nodded, a curt, dismissive gesture as he picked up the small drive. He didn't seem to register the sarcasm, or perhaps he chose to ignore it. "I know change can be difficult, Rossi," he intoned, parroting some line from a management self-help book. "But this is unequivocally the right strategic direction for Apex Financial Systems to unlock its full potential." I rose slowly from my chair, my movements deliberate. I unclipped my access card from my belt and placed it on the table beside the USB drive. "I genuinely hope you're right, Mr. Finch," I said, my voice a quiet echo in the opulent room. For everyone's sake. But in my heart, I knew he was catastrophically wrong. Walking out through the expansive, marble-clad lobby of Apex Financial Systems for the last time, I passed the gleaming Wall of Fame. It was adorned with an ostentatious collection of framed industry awards and laudatory press mentions. One particularly prominent plaque read, "Apex Financial Systems, voted most secure financial data platform 5 consecutive years." That was my work, my legacy, or what was about to become a historical footnote. I didn't feel the burning rage I might have expected. Instead, a profound, hollow certainty settled over me, as cold and vast as the Pacific fog. They had made a catastrophic, monumental mistake. Not in firing me. Companies reorganize, downsize, and restructure all the time. That was the brutal, impersonal nature of the corporate world. Their fatal error, the one that would inevitably come back to haunt them, was in their arrogant, abysmal failure to understand the complex, vital organism they were so blithely, recklessly dismantling. They were like children playing with a loaded gun, utterly oblivious to the danger. As I exited the building, Lena rushed over, her face etched with genuine concern. "Victor, what happened?" she whispered urgently, glancing around as if afraid of being seen with me. "Is there anything I can do?" I offered her a faint, weary smile. "Thank you, Lena. You're a good friend. But there's nothing anyone can do now. Just watch your back." In the sanctuary of my car, parked deep within the echoing concrete labyrinth of the company garage, I turned off my company phone and tossed it onto the passenger seat. Then, I switched on my personal phone and activated the car's ignition. The smooth growl of the engine was a welcome sound. Instead of heading home to my quiet apartment in Nob Hill, I drove east, out of San Francisco, towards the mountains. The car stereo, as if sensing my mood, defaulted to a playlist of gritty, melancholic blues of B.B. King lamenting a love gone wrong. It felt strangely appropriate. Hours later, I found myself at a secluded overlook by Lake Tahoe, the vast, impossibly blue expanse of water stretching out before me, ringed by snow-capped peaks. The air was crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the stale, recycled air of the Apex offices. I sat on a weathered wooden bench, watching the gentle lapping of the waves against the shore for what felt like an eternity. My mind wasn't idle. It was calculating, running through scenarios, assessing vulnerabilities based on Finch's idiotic pronouncements. It wasn't a question of if the first major security incident would occur. It was only a matter of when. And I suspected when would be terrifyingly soon. From my worn leather briefcase, I retrieved my old, personal laptop, a trusty machine that had seen me through countless late nights and challenging projects. I opened it, the familiar glow of the screen, a small comfort in the fading light. There was work to be done, thoughts to organize, just for myself. My grim prediction materialized with sickening speed, far faster than even my most pessimistic calculations had suggested. It was just 2 days later, a Saturday. I was at my favorite local coffee shop in North Beach, the one that actually knew how to pull a decent espresso, trying to lose myself in a biography of Alan Turing. My personal phone, set to silent, buzzed insistently on the small marble table. It was a series of encrypted messages on Signal from Noah Miller. "Mr. Rossi, are you there? It's an emergency. Systems are acting incredibly weird. Multiple critical alert triggers from Aegis, the parts Finch hasn't disabled yet. The new AI monitoring platform Mr. Finch loves so much? It's showing absolutely nothing. Please, can you call me? Nobody here knows what's going on." I stared at the desperate messages, my heart sinking. A bitter, vengeful part of me, the part that felt so deeply betrayed, wanted to ignore it. To let Alistair Finch and his cronies at Quantum Leap Capital discover firsthand, in the most brutal way possible, the catastrophic consequences of dismantling critical security infrastructure they fundamentally failed to understand. Let them stew in the mess they'd created. But 9 years of ingrained professional responsibility, 9 years of living and breathing the ethos of a protector, ultimately won out over the raw, human desire for retribution. With a heavy sigh, I closed my book and called Noah. "Mr. Rossi." "Thank God." He almost shouted into the phone, his voice strained and cracking with panic. I didn't know who else to turn to. "We've got massive, anomalous traffic patterns flooding the Eastern Data Gateway. Aegis is flagging it as a coordinated, multi-vector intrusion attempt, but the alerts are so complex. Nobody on the Skeletal Weekend crew understands what they mean or what to do. The new AI system is still blissfully green, claiming all is well." "What's Mr. Finch saying about all this?" I asked, keeping my tone as calm and steady as I could manage. "Is he aware?" "He's uncontactable," Noah stammered. "Apparently, he's at some urgent, high-level strategic retreat with the QLC executives all weekend, probably playing golf and congratulating themselves on their efficiencies. The general IT team, they're just saying it's probably a false positive storm from some automated Aegis rule updates that didn't get decommissioned properly." My jaw tightened. Automated rule updates that I had meticulously designed and implemented within Aegis to dynamically adapt to newly emerging, sophisticated threat patterns. If those deep-level rules were triggering widespread critical alerts, it meant something was profoundly, dangerously wrong. This was no false positive. "Noah, listen to me very carefully," I said, my voice low and urgent. "Did anyone at all, check the second-level heuristic verification logs within Aegis's core?" A deafening silence on the other end of the line. Then, a small, hesitant voice. The what, Mr. Rossi?" I closed my eyes for a moment, a wave of weariness washing over me. Of course they hadn't. That system was barely documented, another victim of efficiency. "Noah, there's a secondary, deep learning validation system built into Aegis," I explained patiently, picturing the intricate architecture in my mind. "It's designed to correlate and confirm complex alert patterns from multiple sensors before escalating to a full-blown critical incident. If both the primary alert system and that secondary validation layer are triggering in concert, it is absolutely not a false positive. It's the real deal." Where do I find that, Mr. Rossi?" Noah asked, his voice filled with a desperate hope. "It's not in any of the standard operating procedures Mr. Finch's team left us." I walked him through the precise, unconventional steps to access the hidden administrative dashboard for that secondary system. The credentials, naturally, weren't in any of the official handover notes I'd been forced to provide. It was a fail-safe I'd built during a caffeine-fueled weekend hackathon 3 years prior, after a particularly nasty near-miss. It had silently, effectively neutralized two potentially devastating breaches since then, without fanfare, without anyone but me and Dr. Hayes even knowing of its full capabilities. A few moments of tense silence, filled with the frantic clicking of a keyboard on Noah's end. Then, a horrified whisper. "Oh my God, Mr. Rossi. Both systems. They're lit up like a damn Christmas tree in hell. It's, it's a full-scale assault. You need to initiate an immediate emergency isolation of the Eastern Data Gateway, I commanded, my voice sharp with authority I no longer officially possessed. Power down its primary external connection completely and force a failover to the isolated backup line now. I, I can't, Mr. Rossi, Noah replied, his voice trembling. I don't have that level of authorization. Nobody here on the weekend shift does. They never transferred the full admin rights for the core network hardware to anyone in the security operations team after you. After you left. Of course they hadn't. In their arrogant, idiotic rush to dismantle my team and remove me from the equation, they had forgotten or simply hadn't bothered to transfer the most critical elements of my access and operational control. They had effectively disarmed their own sentinels. Then you need to get Mr. Finch on the phone or someone from senior IT management immediately, I said, the frustration evident in my voice. This is beyond your pay grade to handle alone, Noah. I'll try, Mr. Rossi. I'll try everything, he promised, his voice heavy with the weight of the situation. But, Mr. Rossi, can you possibly come in? Just for a little while? Just to help us sort this out? We're completely out of our depth here. I hesitated, a fierce internal battle raging within me. The desire to help, to protect what I had built, warring with the bitter knowledge of their betrayal and the very real professional risks involved. That's not my job anymore, Noah, I said finally, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I'm sorry. Please, Mr. Rossi, he begged, his desperation palpable. I honestly don't know what I'm doing. I'm looking at the Phoenix Protocol document you once showed me, the emergency procedures. But half these commands require privileges I don't have. The Phoenix Protocol. A set of last resort, scorched earth emergency response plans I drafted for a doomsday scenario, shared only with Dr. Hayes, and briefly, with Noah during a training session. It was never officially adopted, deemed too alarmist by the previous board. Finch certainly wouldn't know of its existence. Part of me, the professional, wanted to rush in, to take command, to fight the fire. The other, more pragmatic and cynical part, the part that had been burned, knew far better. Call Mr. Finch, Noah, I instructed, my voice firm. Get him, or his designated second in command, on a secure line. Tell them exactly what I told you about the dual system triggers and the need for immediate gateway isolation. Tell them to consult the Phoenix Protocol, if they can even find a copy. I will be available on this number if, and only if, Mr. Finch or an authorized QLC executive wishes to contact me directly to formally request my assistance. And make it clear, Noah, that any such assistance will come at a significant price. 3 agonizingly long hours later, my personal phone rang again. This time it was an unlisted, blocked number. I let it ring 3 times before answering, my expression carefully neutral as I sipped my now cold espresso. Rossi? It was Alistair Finch. His usually smooth, confident voice was strained, tight as a high-tension wire, and laced with an unfamiliar note of, was that fear? We seem to be experiencing some minor security irregularities, Rossi. Minor irregularities. The man was a master of understatement when his own neck was on the line. So I've heard, Mr. Finch, I replied, my tone cool, detached. Young Noah Miller seems to think it's rather serious. Our new state-of-the-art monitoring systems aren't showing much out of the ordinary, he admitted, a distinct lack of his usual bluster. Just some background noise. That's because your state-of-the-art system, Mr. Finch, was never designed, nor is it capable of, detecting sophisticated, deeply embedded intrusion attempts, I stated calmly. Aegis, the system you so cavalierly dismissed and defunded, was built for precisely that purpose. It had layers you didn't even know existed. A tense silence crackled over the line. What exactly do you want from me, Mr. Finch? I asked, breaking the silence. He cleared his throat, a dry, rasping sound. We were hoping. That is, The board and I were hoping that we could perhaps prevail upon you for some of your unique insights. A brief phone consultation, perhaps, to help our current team get a handle on things. A mirthless, ironic smile touched my lips. This was rich. Let me be perfectly clear, Mr. Finch. You want me to consult on the very security system you publicly derided, declared obsolete, and systematically dismantled because it wasn't agile enough for your new vision? A system whose creator you summarily fired just days ago. No one said security wasn't necessary, Rossi, he retorted sharply, a flash of his old arrogance returning. We are simply restructuring how it's managed for greater efficiency. And how's that greater efficiency working out for you so far, Mr. Finch? I asked, my voice soft, yet carrying the distinct chill of a winter morning. The line went utterly quiet for a long, pregnant moment. I could almost hear the frantic calculations whirring in his head. We are prepared, he said finally, his voice now devoid of all pretense, flat and businesslike, to formally engage your services as an independent contractor and pay your standard contractor rate for any assistance rendered. I allowed myself a small, grim smile. The worm had well and truly turned. My emergency contractor rate, Mr. Finch, given the circumstances, is $1,000 per hour, I stated, plucking a number from thin air. There is a non-negotiable 4-hour minimum payable up front via wire transfer. Furthermore, I will require a legally binding, signed statement from Apex Financial Systems indemnifying me from any and all liability for outcomes, regardless of my input or advice. You broke it. You own the consequences of fixing it or failing to. I fully expected him to balk, to explode in indignation, to haggle. Instead, he simply said, his voice a low growl of reluctant capitulation, I'll have our legal team draft the indemnification paperwork immediately, and I'll authorize the wire transfer. How soon can you start providing assistance? This was the moment. The delicious, long-awaited moment. I can't, Mr. Finch, I replied, my voice calm, almost regretful. I'm afraid it's impossible. What? Why? He sputtered, caught off guard. As it happens, I have just formally accepted a senior position with a new employer, Viridian Cybernetics, a leading firm in the cybersecurity space. My severance agreement with Apex Financial Systems, as I'm sure your legal team will confirm, contains a rather stringent non-compete clause. This clause, unfortunately, explicitly prevents me from accessing or consulting on Apex's internal systems now that I am officially joining a direct competitor in the financial security services sector. This, of course, was a carefully constructed fabrication. While I had indeed received a very promising inquiry from Ms. Cassandra Shaw at Viridian Cybernetics just that morning via LinkedIn, I hadn't formally accepted anything yet. And the standard Apex non-compete, as I recalled, had specific exemptions for pre-approved consulting work, especially in emergency situations. But Alistair Finch didn't know that, and I had no intention of enlightening him. Rossi, this is incredibly serious, he stammered, the desperation raw in his voice now. Our client's data, the company's reputation. Yes, Mr. Finch, I agreed, my voice devoid of any sympathy. It is indeed. You and your board made your strategic choices. Now, it seems, you get to live with the consequences. I ended the call without waiting for a reply and switched off my personal phone completely. Whatever fresh hell was currently erupting at Apex Financial Systems, it was no longer my problem to solve. They had sown the wind. Now they would reap the whirlwind. My father's words echoed in my mind. Be careful who you trust with what you build, son. Not everyone values craftsmanship. He had no idea how right he was. The next morning, Sunday, I found myself compulsively checking the major tech news websites and cybersecurity forums out of deeply ingrained habit. At first, there was nothing but the usual industry chatter. Silence! But by noon, the first ominous headline surfaced, not on a mainstream site, but on CyberSec Insider, a well-respected, often controversial blog known for its deep sources within the hacker underground. The headline was stark. Rumors swirl. Financial data giant Apex Financial Systems reportedly investigating potential major security incident. My personal phone, which I had reluctantly switched back on, began to light up like a pinball machine. 7 missed calls, all from various Apex Financial Systems numbers. 3 were from Alistair Finch, his desperation undoubtedly growing with each passing hour. 2 were from poor Noah Miller, likely frantic and overwhelmed. 1 was from Lena Petrova, probably concerned for my well-being, or perhaps seeking information. And the last one was from a private number I didn't immediately recognize, but the voicemail attached to it quickly clarified. I sat at my small kitchen table, the aroma of freshly ground coffee, my one true vice, filling the air, and listened to the voicemails with a growing sense of detached inevitability. Mr. Finch's messages were increasingly frantic. Rossi, we absolutely need to talk. Now, the situation here has escalated significantly. Damn it, Rossi, call me back immediately. This is critical. Noah's voicemails were heartbreakingly desperate. Mr. Rossi, it's bad. It's really, really bad. Something, is deep inside the primary client systems, and we can't seem to lock them out. Aegis is trying to fight back, but its core functions are crippled. Please, Mr. Rossi, if you get this, please call. The final voicemail was from the private number. The voice was older, gravelly, and instantly recognizable. It was Mr. Lawrence Cole, the long-standing CEO of Apex Financial Systems, a man I had once respected before QLC and Finch had arrived. Victor, this is Lawrence Cole. His voice was strained, heavy with a weariness that went beyond mere fatigue. Son, whatever unfortunate business happened between you and Alistair, we desperately need your help right now. Our client's most sensitive data is unequivocally at risk. The entire company is on the line. Please, Victor, I'm begging you, call me directly on this number as soon as you get this message. I sat motionless at my sun-drenched kitchen table, my carefully brewed single-origin Ethiopian Yirgacheffe growing cold and bitter in its mug, mirroring the taste in my mouth. 9 painstaking years I had dedicated to building the most robust, resilient security system imaginable for Apex. And it had taken less than 72 hours for that system to be compromised, perhaps fatally, after my departure. Not because Aegis itself was inherently flawed. No, it was compromised because the new regime, in its infinite arrogance and ignorance, had no earthly idea how to operate, maintain, or even comprehend the complex machinery they had inherited and then promptly started to dismantle. With a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of those 9 years, I picked up my phone and called Mr. Lawrence Cole back. He answered on the first ring, his voice raw with relief. Victor, thank God, son. Thank you for calling back. Mr. Cole, we have a critical situation here at Apex. I've heard rumors to that effect, I replied, my voice carefully neutral. What exactly is happening, Mr. Cole? From your perspective. It's a nightmare, Victor, he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Someone, or something, is deep inside our core systems. They've bypassed all the primary perimeter security measures somehow. The techs are saying they're seeing evidence of unauthorized lateral movement between isolated client databases, but for the life of them, they can't figure out how it's happening or how to stop it. He paused, then added, Alistair, Mr. Finch, keeps muttering something about the internal data segmentation protocols failing catastrophically. The internal segmentation. The very heart of Aegis. My custom-built, multi-layered data isolation architecture, specifically designed to prevent precisely this kind of lateral movement between client data repositories, even if the perimeter was breached. It was engineered to automatically trigger a full lockdown of affected segments if it detected anomalous access patterns or unauthorized data transit. Mr. Cole, I began, has the segment autolock protocol within Aegis been triggered? A confused silence on the other end. Then, The what autolock, Victor? I closed my eyes, a familiar wave of weary frustration washing over me. This was beyond incompetence. This was willful blindness. Mr. Cole, there is a fully automated quarantine and isolation system built directly into Aegis's core segmentation controls, I explained, trying to keep the exasperation from my voice. It's a last line of defense. If unauthorized cross-segment movement is detected at a critical threshold, it is designed to automatically isolate each affected client database, effectively air-gapping them from the rest of the network and from each other. No one here has mentioned any such quarantine system, Victor, Mr. Cole said, his voice tight with a new kind of dawning horror. Hold on a moment, let me ask Alistair. I heard muffled, agitated voices in the background of Mr. Cole's querulous tones and Finch's sharp, defensive replies. Then Mr. Cole came back on the line, sounding even more distressed. Victor, Alistair Finch says there's absolutely nothing in any of the official system documentation about an auto-quarantine feature. Of course there wasn't. Because the board, in their infinite wisdom and relentless pursuit of cost-cutting, had repeatedly, year after year, slashed my budget requests to properly and comprehensively document all of Aegis's advanced, often custom-built security systems. It was an emergency custom solution, Victor. We'll allocate resources to document it properly later, had been the mantra from on high when they'd reluctantly approved the bare minimum funding for its initial development. Later, as always, had never come. The system exists, Mr. Cole, I stated unequivocally. I personally designed and implemented it myself 3 years ago, as an emergency measure immediately following the near-disastrous Threadbank Consolidated security incident. It was approved by the board at the time. More muffled, frantic conversation crackled over the line. Then, a new, unwelcome voice abruptly cut in Alistair Finch, sounding harried and furious. Rossi, where exactly is this mythical quarantine system you're babbling about? He demanded, his usual condescension replaced by raw panic. We can't find any reference to it in any of the Aegis infrastructure diagrams or your handover notes. It's not in the standard diagrams, Mr. Finch, because it was implemented under extreme duress as an emergency countermeasure during the Threadbank security crisis 3 years ago, I explained, my patience wearing thin. The board approved it back then as a temporary mission-critical solution that, due to its effectiveness and subsequent lack of funding for a replacement, effectively became a permanent, albeit poorly documented, fixture. Check the official minutes from the emergency board meeting held in August of that year, if you can even find them. Another strained pause, filled with the rustling of papers and frantic typing. Then Finch, his voice tight with grudging admission. We're looking. Yes. Damn it. Here it is. Approved emergency security measures as proposed by lead architect Victor Rossi to be implemented with immediate effect. But there are no technical details here, Rossi. Just a high-level approval. That's because the board, Mr. Finch, didn't want convoluted technical details at that moment of crisis, I retorted, a sharp edge to my voice. They wanted the bleeding stopped, and they wanted it stopped immediately. They trusted me to solve the problem, which I did. I could almost hear Alistair Finch grinding his teeth in impotent frustration on the other end of the line. Can you just tell us how to activate it, Rossi? He snarled. Assuming it even exists outside your imagination. It should activate automatically if the correct parameters are met, I replied coolly. If it hasn't engaged by now, it means something, or more likely someone, has deliberately altered its core configuration or disabled its triggers. Nothing's been changed in Aegis's core, Finch insisted, his voice rising in pitch. My team has been very careful. I let that blatant lie hang in the air for a moment. Then I thought. The tendrils of their incompetence ran deep. Mr. Finch, check the master's scheduled tasks list on the primary Aegis security management server, I instructed. There should be a critical verification and health check job named Aegis Quarantine Integrity Check that is programmed to run every 6 hours without fail. Its sole purpose is to confirm that the auto-quarantine system is fully operational and its triggers are armed. Several minutes of agonizing silence ensued, punctuated by more frantic typing and muttered curses from Finch's end. Then his voice, when it finally came, was small, almost a whisper, heavy with dawning comprehension and defeat. The task. The task is listed here, Rossi. But its status is disabled. A cold, grim satisfaction settled over me. Checkmate. And who, Mr. Finch? I asked, my voice dangerously soft. Gave the order to disable that critical integrity check? Though, of course, I already knew the answer. Alistair Finch's reply was barely audible, choked with the full weight of his catastrophic misjudgment. It was disabled last week, Rossi. As a proactive measure during the initial phases of the security operations restructuring. We were instructed to consolidate all non-essential scheduled tasks to reduce unnecessary system overhead and improve performance. They had, in their boundless stupidity and arrogance, systematically dismantled my carefully constructed security system piece by piece. Like ignorant children taking apart a complex watch without the faintest understanding of how the intricate components work together, or why each one was vital. Now they were facing the disastrous, inevitable consequences of their actions. And the clock was ticking. While Apex Financial System's self-inflicted nightmare was rapidly careening towards total disaster, my personal LinkedIn notifications pinged. It was a direct message from a Ms. Cassandra Shaw, the highly respected Chief Technology Officer at Viridian Cybernetics. Viridian was, without a doubt, one of the top-tier cybersecurity firms in the country, perhaps globally. I had followed their groundbreaking work, their innovative research, and their principled approach to security for years, always with a deep sense of admiration. Ms. Shaw's message was brief, direct, and intriguing. Victor Rossi, I heard through the grapevine you might be available for new opportunities. Your reputation precedes you. If your situation has indeed changed, I believe we should talk, urgently. The timing of her message, amidst the chaos I knew was engulfing my former employer, couldn't have been more uncanny or more welcome. It felt like a lifeline thrown into a turbulent sea. We arranged to meet for coffee later, that same afternoon at a quiet, artisanal cafe tucked away in San Francisco's historic Ferry Building marketplace. The place was known for its excellent single-origin brews, a detail that, even in my current state, I appreciated. Cassandra Shaw, or Miss Shaw as I addressed her, was as impressive in person as her formidable reputation suggested. She was sharp, articulate, probably in her late 40s, with an air of quiet confidence and a gaze that missed nothing. She got straight to the point, wasting no time on pleasantries after our initial handshake. Victor, word travels exceptionally fast in our rather incestuous security circles, as you well know, she began, her voice calm and measured as she stirred her macchiato. The unfolding situation at Apex Financial Systems is deeply unfortunate, to say the least. A tragedy, really, for their clients. I took a slow sip of my perfectly brewed espresso, the rich bitterness a welcome contrast to the day's events. I'm afraid I don't know the current, specific details of their situation, Miss Shaw, I replied, choosing my words carefully. As you correctly surmised, I'm not there anymore. She nodded, a flicker of understanding in her intelligent eyes. Of course, plausible deniability is a valuable asset in times like these. But what I do know, Victor, is your long-standing reputation at Apex. 9 years at the helm of their security, and not a single successful major breach during your tenure. In the financial sector, that's not just impressive, it's almost unheard of. That kind of track record speaks volumes. Until, apparently, now, I said, a touch of lingering bitterness in my tone that I couldn't quite suppress. Miss Shaw leaned forward slightly, her gaze intent. From what my sources are telling me, and they are very reliable sources, Victor, the current breach at Apex occurred after a series of significant, ill-advised changes were made to your carefully constructed security architecture. Changes I am also reliably informed that you did not implement, and in fact, vehemently opposed. I didn't bother asking how she knew such precise internal details. The cybersecurity community, especially at the senior levels, was indeed a small, tightly knit world. News, gossip, and cautionary tales traveled with the speed of light through back channels and trusted contacts. Viridian Cybernetics is currently undergoing a significant expansion of our financial sector cybersecurity practice, she continued, her voice shifting to a more business-like tone. We need a leader, someone with proven, hands-on experience who truly understands the unique, complex challenges of that high-stakes environment. Someone who has not only built sophisticated, custom security solutions from the ground up, but also knows how to manage and evolve complex, multi-layered security infrastructures under pressure. Someone, frankly, like you, Victor. The job offer she then outlined was nothing short of astonishing. It was a senior director-level position, commanding a salary nearly double what I had been making at Apex, plus substantial equity in Viridian Cybernetics, a company whose future looked incredibly bright. I would have a dedicated team of 8 highly skilled senior security engineers reporting directly to me, with a mandate to build the best financial cyber defense practice in the industry. The only catch, if one could call it that, I would need to start almost immediately, given the current market climate and some urgent client needs. A wave of something akin to relief washed over me, so potent it was almost dizzying. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a validation, a recognition of my skills and experience from one of the best in the business. Ms. Shaw, this is an incredibly generous offer, I said, genuinely impressed. I should inform you, however, that my severance agreement with Apex Financial Systems includes a fairly standard, but potentially problematic, non-compete clause. Cassandra Shaw smiled then, a genuine, confident smile that transformed her serious features. Our legal team, Victor, has already proactively reviewed standard Quantum Leap Capital and Apex Financial Systems severance agreements in anticipation of this conversation. She took another sip of her macchiato. The non-compete, as typically worded in such documents, primarily applies to you joining a firm that offers directly competing financial data processing services, which Viridian Cybernetics certainly does not. We are a pure-play cybersecurity consulting and solutions firm. In fact, she added, a glint of strategic acumen in her eyes, we are not a competitor to Apex in their core business. In the current circumstances, we would far more likely be a potential high-value vendor to them should they survive this crisis and seek competent external help for the cleanup. Her foresight was remarkable. That evening, back in the quiet sanctuary of my apartment, I was carefully reviewing Viridian Cybernetics' formal offer letter, a document that felt like a passport to a new, more promising future. My phone, resting on the antique writing desk my father had given me, rang again. The caller ID displayed Apex Financial Systems' main switchboard number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Victor Rossi speaking. Victor? Oh, thank heavens. It's Lena Petrova. Her voice was strained, frayed at the edges, the sound of someone running on pure adrenaline and despair. Victor, have you? Have you seen the news? I hadn't been monitoring the situation since my last, unsatisfying call with Finch and Mr. Cole. I quickly opened my laptop and navigated to the major financial news websites: Wall Street Chronicle, Financial Times, Reuters. The headlines were stark, brutal, and splashed across every front page. Apex Financial Systems confirms major data breach. Sensitive client information compromised in sophisticated cyber attack. Financial services giant Apex suffers catastrophic security failure. Experts fear widespread fallout, and the one that would surely send QLC executives into a tailspin. Apex APX stock plummets 28% in after-hours trading following confirmation of massive data breach. A cold dread seeped into me, despite everything. This was a disaster of epic proportions. How bad is it, Lena? I asked, my voice grim. From the inside, what are you hearing? It's, it's cataclysmic, Victor, Lena replied, her voice choked with emotion. The intruders, whoever they are, managed to exfiltrate data from at least 40, possibly more, major client databases before the emergency teams finally managed to pull the plug and shut down all external network access completely. The entire system is in total chaos. Nobody, and I mean nobody, can figure out how to restore Aegis's core security controls properly, or even assess the full extent of the damage. Finch's new Wonder AI is, of course, utterly useless. What's Alistair Finch saying through all of this? I asked, though I could already guess. Is he taking any responsibility? Lena let out a short, bitter laugh that was closer to a sob. Finch isn't saying anything to us mere mortals, Victor. He's been locked in non-stop, brutal crisis meetings with Mr. Lawrence Cole and the QLC board members since yesterday evening. Rumor has it, they've already called in an external, high-priced incident response firm, some outfit from out of state I've never heard of. An external firm. One that would now have the unenviable, Herculean task of trying to decipher the intricate, largely undocumented architecture of my Aegis system, with no background, no institutional knowledge, and certainly no help from its creator. They might figure some of it out, eventually, after days or weeks of painstaking, expensive reverse engineering. But it would take an immense amount of precious time. Time during which Apex Financial Systems' hard-won reputation was being systematically, irrevocably shredded in the global public square. Time during which their clients were twisting in the wind. "I'm so sorry, Lena," I said, and I genuinely meant it for her, for Noah, for the many good, innocent people at Apex who would inevitably suffer from this, for the clients whose trust had been so catastrophically violated. This is a terrible, terrible thing. "It's not your fault, Victor," Lena said, her voice softening slightly. "You tried to warn them, repeatedly. God knows you did. They wouldn't listen. The very next morning, with a clear head and a renewed sense of purpose, I digitally signed Viridian Cybernetics' generous offer letter. A weight I hadn't fully realized I was carrying lifted from my shoulders. By noon that same day, I was sitting in Viridian's sleek, modern downtown San Francisco office, surrounded by cutting-edge technology and a palpable atmosphere of innovation and energy, getting set up with my new equipment and access credentials. The contrast with the oppressive, fear-laden environment I had recently departed could not have been more stark. Ms. Shaw, true to her word about an immediate start, wasted no time. My first official assignment to take the lead in developing a comprehensive, next-generation post-breach recovery and resilience framework specifically tailored for high-risk financial institutions. The irony was not lost on me. That evening, as I was sketching out the initial pillars of this new framework, my personal phone buzzed with one final, desperate text message. It was from Mr. Lawrence Cole, CEO of the rapidly imploding Apex Financial Systems. His message was brief, almost pitiful. "Victor, the QLC board has authorized me to open discussions about bringing you back to Apex. Effectively, immediately. Name your terms, son. Any terms." I read the message once, then a second time. A bitter smile touched my lips. Too little, too late. Far too late. I didn't respond. Some bridges, once they have been thoroughly, catastrophically burned to the ground through arrogance and willful ignorance, should remain nothing but ashes and regret. Instead, I turned back to my new work. I attached my initial draft of the recovery framework concepts to an email addressed to Ms. Cassandra Shaw. The subject line I chose was simple, yet resonant. Project Phoenix, a framework for preventing the next Apex. One intense, productive month after the Apex Financial Systems data breach sent shockwaves through the entire financial industry. I was settling comfortably into my new role as Director of Cyber Threat Intelligence at Viridian Cybernetics. The work was challenging, the team was brilliant, and for the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely valued and respected for my expertise. It was then that the Wall Street Chronicle, the nation's most respected financial newspaper, published a meticulously researched, explosive investigative piece. The headline, splashed across their digital front page, read, "The Dismantling of Apex. How a Culture of Cost-Cutting and Arrogance Led to Catastrophic Security Failure." The damning article, citing numerous internal sources and leaked documents, detailed with surgical precision how Apex's new management team, under the direct leadership of Alistair Finch and with the full backing of Quantum Leap Capital, had systematically, recklessly stripped away layers of critical security controls, all in a dangerously misguided pursuit of accelerated development cycles and short-term profit maximization. Internal emails, obtained by the Chronicle's tenacious reporters, showed irrefutable proof that Alistair Finch himself had personally ordered the disabling of key Aegis security mechanisms and crucial monitoring tasks. This, despite explicit, documented warnings from his own beleaguered IT staff, including a now vindicated Noah Miller. Noah, I was pleased to see, was quoted extensively, though anonymously, throughout the article. He courageously described, with painful accuracy, how my complex, custom-designed Aegis security architecture had been systematically dismantled and effectively sabotaged by a leadership team that possessed neither the competence nor the humility to understand what they were destroying. But perhaps the most damning revelation, the one that truly painted a picture of systemic, long-term negligence, came from official Apex Financial Systems board meeting minutes from 3 years prior. The Chronicle had somehow obtained them. The minutes clearly documented my repeated, formal requests for a dedicated budget and resources for the proper, comprehensive documentation and structured knowledge transfer of the Aegis security systems. My requests, it turned out, had been summarily denied by the board, not just once, but for 6 consecutive quarters. Each time they were cynically labeled as non-essential administrative overhead or deferrable, low-priority expenditure. The fallout from the article was immediate and brutal. That very same day, 3 of Apex Financial Systems' largest, most prestigious institutional clients publicly announced that they were immediately terminating their multi-million-dollar contracts. Their scathing press releases cited irreconcilable and profound concerns about Apex's data security practices and a complete and irreversible loss of trust in Apex Financial Systems' security governance and operational integrity. I didn't need to check the stock market tickers to know what was happening to Apex's already battered share price. LinkedIn, that ever-present barometer of corporate health, told the unfolding story with stark clarity. Hundreds of Apex Financial Systems employees, from junior analysts to vice presidents, began updating their online profiles en masse, frantically signaling their availability, desperate to escape the rapidly sinking ship. The digital exodus was in full swing. Alistair Finch, I noted with a grim sense of irony, updated his LinkedIn profile too. His new, pathetically vague job title read, Strategic Technology Advisor and Digital Transformation Catalyst. No company was listed. His disastrous, value-destroying tenure at Apex Financial Systems had lasted less than 3 tumultuous months. A record, perhaps, even for him. At Viridian Cybernetics, the phones began ringing off the hook. We received a deluge of urgent inquiries from several prominent former clients of Apex Financial Systems, all desperately seeking expert security advisory services and robust, trustworthy alternative solutions. During one particularly memorable conference call with the CIO of a major investment bank, a former Apex flagship client, he paused and asked me directly, "Mr. Rossi, forgive my directness, but our due diligence indicates you were the principal architect of Apex's security infrastructure for many years, prior to the recent unpleasantness. Is that accurate?" "Yes, sir, that is accurate," I answered simply, my voice calm. I was responsible for its design, implementation, and maintenance for 9 years. The CIO let out a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of his own institution's near disaster. "We thought as much, Mr. Rossi," he replied, a note of profound respect in his voice. your reputation for diligence and excellence was well known to us even before this crisis. Frankly, that's precisely why Viridian Cybernetics is the very first firm we are calling. We need someone who truly understands how to build impenetrable defenses in this hostile environment. I took no overt pleasure in witnessing the complete and utter downfall of Apex Financial Systems, a company I had poured nearly a decade of my life into, a company I had helped build from a scrappy startup into an industry leader, was now crumbling into dust, its name synonymous with catastrophic failure. Hundreds of good, talented, hardworking people like Lena and Noah, would undoubtedly lose their jobs, their livelihoods thrown into turmoil through no fault of their own. That was a tragedy. But beneath the surface of that genuine regret, I confess, I felt a quiet, profound sense of vindication. A vindication not born of malice, but of a deeply held professional conviction finally, albeit brutally, proven correct. Security, true security, was not, and never would be, just some expendable line item on a budget and inconvenient overhead, to be ruthlessly cut in the name of speed or profit. It was foundational. It was the bedrock of trust. And those who failed to understand that fundamental truth would, eventually, inevitably, pay a terrible price. Apex Financial Systems was now Exhibit A in that harsh lesson. 6 months later, Viridian Cybernetics' financial security practice had grown exponentially, fueled by an influx of former Apex clients seeking refuge and true expertise. Our reputation for competence and integrity soared. I was immensely pleased that several of my most trusted and talented former colleagues from Apex had also found new homes on my rapidly expanding team at Viridian. Noah Miller, his confidence and skills now significantly bolstered by real-world crisis experience, was my highly capable senior security engineer, already showing leadership potential. And Lena Petrova, with her exceptional communication skills and innate empathy, was now heading our crucial client communications and engagement department, a role she was born for. Apex Financial Systems itself, or what little remained of it, had been quietly acquired by a bottom-feeding private equity firm for a tiny fraction of its former market value. It was essentially a fire sale, purchased solely for its rapidly dwindling client list and a few salvageable technology patents. The once proud Apex Financial Systems brand name, now irrevocably tainted, was unceremoniously retired, erased from the industry lexicon. The catastrophic security breach, however, lived on. It quickly became a prominent, cautionary tale in MBA programs and business school case studies worldwide, a textbook example of how arrogance, ignorance, and the prioritization of short-term gains over long-term stability could destroy a thriving enterprise. It was at a major international cybersecurity conference in the glittering, hyper-real landscape of Las Vegas that I unexpectedly ran into Mr. Lawrence Cole. The former CEO of Apex looked older, grayer, and visibly diminished. We found ourselves, by sheer chance, alone at the opulent hotel bar late one evening, after the day's exhausting sessions and relentless networking had concluded. He gestured to the bartender for another scotch, then turned to me, a weary, almost apologetic smile on his lips. "Victor, fancy meeting you here." He raised his glass in a tentative toast. "No hard feelings, I hope?" he asked, his voice subdued. I met his gaze, my expression unreadable. "None whatsoever, Mr. Cole," I answered, and it was the truth. My anger had long since dissipated, replaced by a kind of weary philosophical acceptance. Business decisions, as you well know, always have consequences. Some, it turns out, are just far more profound and far-reaching than others. He nodded slowly, staring into his drink, as if searching for answers in the amber liquid. "For what it's worth, Victor," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "I fought against those reckless changes Alistair Finch was pushing through. I argued against them vehemently in the board meetings with QLC, but I was outvoted, overruled at every turn. They were dazzled by Finch's silver tongue and his promises of rapid returns. That's often the way with boards, isn't it? I remarked, taking a sip of my own drink, a meticulously crafted old-fashioned. Driven by quarterly reports and shareholder value, sometimes blind to the foundational pillars holding the entire edifice up. He sighed. Your new firm, Viridian Cybernetics, seems to be doing exceptionally well from what I hear. You've certainly become the gold standard in our former market space. We are, Mr. Cole, I confirmed quietly. We're building something strong, something lasting, something based on trust and genuine expertise. Mr. Lawrence Cole finished his scotch in one long swallow, then set the empty glass down with a decisive click. He looked at me, a strange, ironic twist to his lips. You know what the ultimate bitter irony in all of this is, Victor? I waited. The remnants of Apex, under its new ownership, are now paying Viridian Cybernetics, your firm, nearly 3 times your former Apex salary for ongoing emergency security consulting and remediation services. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched my own lips. The cost of security, Mr. Cole, always gets paid, I observed. It's just a question of whether you pay it responsibly, proactively, upfront, or if you pay it catastrophically, reactively, after the disaster has already struck. And believe me, after is always infinitely more expensive, in every conceivable way. As he turned to leave, a stooped figure disappearing into the casino's cacophony, Mr. Lawrence Cole paused for a moment at the exit. He looked back over his shoulder. Alistair Finch, by the way. I heard he landed on his feet, as they always seem to do. He's now some sort of chief innovation officer at a new fintech startup called Philosophies Dynamics, pushing the exact same move fast and break things philosophy from what my sources tell me. I simply nodded. Good luck to them, I said, my voice devoid of any malice. They'll undoubtedly need it. Back in the bustling, innovative environment of Viridian Cybernetics' San Francisco headquarters on a bright Monday morning, I walked into my office to find Ms. Cassandra Shaw waiting for me, a rare, almost mischievous twinkle in her usually serious eyes. She held a printout from an early morning threat intelligence feed. Victor, you might find this interesting, she said, handing me the sheet. It was an urgent security alert. Philosophies Dynamics, Alistair Finch's new playground, had reportedly suffered a significant, highly embarrassing security incident over the weekend. Details were still emerging, but it sounded suspiciously like a ransomware attack that had crippled their core operations. Their newly appointed CISO was, according to the alert, already desperately requesting emergency incident response assistance from leading firms, including, ironically, Viridian Cybernetics. Ms. Shaw raised an eyebrow. Want to take the lead on this one personally, Victor? She asked, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. A chance to reconnect with an old acquaintance, perhaps? I shook my head, a genuine smile finally gracing my own features. Thank you for the offer, Ms. Shaw, but no. Send our new junior incident response team. They need the field experience, the chance to learn under pressure. And frankly, I added, some messes are best left for others to clean up. My focus needs to be on building, not just reacting. That afternoon, I put the finishing touches on Viridian Cybernetics' comprehensive new client onboarding documentation. It was a meticulously detailed, crystal clear guide designed to ensure that both our team and our clients shared a profound, granular understanding of the full security architecture we would be implementing and managing for them. The title of the Keystone section, the one I had labored over the most, read, Understanding the Full Security Architecture, the Unbreakable Foundation of Trust and Resilience. My father, the old-school engineer with his calloused hands and unwavering belief in solid craftsmanship, had been right about so many things. His words, often spoken over a shared workbench littered with tools and half-finished projects, echoed in my memory. Job security, true professional worth, isn't ultimately about the prestige of where you work or the title on your business card. It's about consistently striving to be the person who possesses the foresight, the skill, and the unwavering integrity to prevent the kind of disasters that others, in their haste or their hubris, don't even see coming until it's far too late. It's about being the one who builds the lighthouse, not just the one who mops up after the shipwreck. Later that evening, alone in my apartment, I opened that old, battered laptop I had taken with me to Lake Tahoe during those dark days after my dismissal from Apex. Flipping through the archived files, I found what I was looking for. Not complex code, but a series of early, hand-drawn concept sketches for the Aegis system, its core principles laid out with a youthful, almost naive optimism. Tucked within those sketches was a faded, handwritten note from my father, given to me when I first embarked on my career in the challenging, often thankless, field of cybersecurity. It read, "Victor, my son, the world will always need those who build strong walls. When faced with storms and skeptics, always have the courage to walk your own path, to trust your craft, and to build what you know to be right, even if others do not yet understand. Your integrity is your true north." I closed the laptop, a sense of quiet peace settling over me. The path had been difficult, but my compass had, eventually, led me true. And there was still so much more to build.